Hello everyone and welcome back to JAS Reviews. My name is James and welcome to my latest list for the year, the top 15 worst songs of 2020. Yes, it's that time. It's time to talk about the worst of what 2020 has to offer and the worst things that have come out this year. I've sort of been dreading this video, but I've also sort of been excited for it because it is sort of enjoyable to talk about bad songs in a way, but it's also sort of not because you just gotta remind yourself of what atrocities these songs were. But yeah, that's the video for today. The year 2020 has overall been a pretty good one for music. In fact, I'd say throughout the months it's been pretty consistent. But that doesn't mean there hasn't been some bad music this year. There is a lot of trash to take out, and this video will help me do that. So, let's go ahead and get started. This is the top 15 worst songs of 2020. Now remember, this list is just my opinion. If you like any of these songs, that's fine, but they just personally weren't for me, so keep that in mind. Alright, let's go ahead and start with number 15.
I like you, won't give a fuck about your boyfriend. Come on, let's link, can't do what I do.
At some points in this year, Tic Toc turned out to be a blessing in disguise. In fact, it let a lot of good hit songs chart on the Billboard that may have not charted in the past. But then there are those times where I truly do wish that Tic Toc didn't have quite the influence that it did, because without its influence, this truly abysmal song probably would have never made it onto the charts. This song is really just very incompetent in almost every way possible. WhoHeem embodies the worst of trap cliches, the most amateur of them, from the cliched lyrics about stealing your girl to the super basic backing trap beat that has no interesting variation or anything to write home about whatsoever. But what really brought this song over the edge for me were the vocals. Man, were the vocals just a struggle to get through on this song. I actually can't believe how out of tune this guy was throughout the whole song. There was never a time when he seemed to be on note or on pitch of any kind, and the even worse thing is that they don't try to cover it up with auto-tune. He's an awful vocalist, and this song is just awful in every way possible, giving into the most generic cliches of trap in every second, and pretty much nothing about the song works from any standpoint. It's one of the least interesting songs from its genre, and it's by far one of the worst of the genre. And the point still stands, even though I sort of respect the idea that they don't cover it up with autotune, WhoHeem is still a bad vocalist, and that makes the song a struggle to get through. Thank goodness it's mercifully short, or this song would be much higher on my list.
Like I should, when in dark, walk around the neighborhood.
I generally consider myself an optimist. I try to look at things with a hopeful outlook and hope that the best will come out of any unfortunate situation. But there are times when you have to be realistic about a situation, when you have to realize that sometimes things won't always turn out the way you want to, or the way that you need them to. I also tend to like songs that have an optimistic nature to them. I enjoy songs that have a positive message to them and try to keep positive and look on the bright side. But there are also those songs that feel like they're just fake happy to me. They have this overwhelming sheen of false happiness, of false positivity, almost a forced positivity. This song, Sunday Best by Surfaces, is definitely one of those tracks. This song gives into one of my least favorite lyrical cliches out there, that if you just manifest positivity mentally, then any situation will turn into a good one no matter how bad it is. I feel like this message is more toxic than it is positive, honestly, because you're basically trying to force happiness is what this song is saying. Sometimes, believe it or not, it's okay to have a negative emotion be a primary trait. In fact, sadness and anger don't have to necessarily be negative emotions in every context. And if you don't let those emotions out, if you don't let those emotions be present, then that can make your mental well-being very toxic if you don't express those things and are constantly always trying to be happy. I hate to say this, but I feel like Surfaces would be the type of band that would view it as an inconvenience if someone were to be going through a rough patch in their life. I feel like these would be the type of people who would say, oh, come on, this is just a passing cloud, it'll be okay, just let those positive vibes roll, be happy. Add on top of that a vocalist who is extremely nasally and irritating to listen to. I don't know why people like vocalists with this type of vocal style, it just doesn't work. And also, super generic guitar and drum work that is supposed to sound indie, I suppose, but it's the most generic type of indie ever. It's really only meant for commercials at the end of the day, is what the song feels like. And when that is what the song is meant for, because I have heard this song in commercials, you just realize that the message of this song ultimately becomes meaningless at the end of the day, making the song ring all the more hollow.
Come over, right? You come over and you'd stay the night.
Unless you've been living under a rock, you know that there's been a certain virus going around that has made the idea of going out and being around people a sort of a lost art for quite some time, especially in certain areas like the US where I'm living. So it's not surprising to me that many artists decided to make songs surrounding feelings of loneliness and isolation. And in fact, out of this I felt like a new genre arose, the quarantine anthem. Unfortunately, a lot of these quarantine anthems just didn't work for me that well. One of them was definitely If the World Was Ending by JP Saxe and Julia Michaels. I did not care for this song at all, and I feel like it embodied the worst of the quarantine anthem tropes. A lot of quarantine anthems, as I call them, have the problem of either being very pandering or very messy. And unfortunately, this song is a bit of a combination of both. Now, on surface level, everything here seems a bit competent, but when you dig in deeper, as you hear the song more, you realize that there are more and more problems with it. Vocally, I don't feel like either vocalist here is convincing us of the chemistry that is supposed to be between these two characters. There's also the very melodramatic piano playing in this song, and the over-the-top electronics that just continue to make the song feel more and more ridiculous as it goes on. There's just points in the song where the musicality is trying so hard to sell the emotion, so hard to sell you on it, that it ultimately becomes unconvincing. Now, back to the vocalist, because the musicality ultimately becomes forgettable the more it goes on. I suppose JP Saxe is okay enough as the sort of lead here, but Julia Michaels comes in and sort of ruins anything that he was trying to sell. I just cannot stand her as a vocalist, and she adds basically nothing to this song, basically trying to over-enunciate everything to make it sound like she's being dramatic, but at the end of the day, it doesn't feel dramatic at all. The lyrics are also utterly shallow, with Saxe asking somewhat pathetically over and over again if his ex would come over if the world was ending, saying right in a very plaintive manner that feels so desperate and so utterly unconvincing, like he can't even convince himself of his desperation. And the desperation here doesn't come across as charming like I think it's supposed to, or even touching like it's supposed to. Honestly, any emotion that this song had in the first place was already utterly lacking, but this cloying desperation that the song has makes it all the worse. This track was just one of many quarantine cuts that tried its best to appeal to our most base of emotions, but failed in every way possible.
My name is Marsh, and I'm out this world. That's on my chest. Superman. Like it's...
What happened to Eminem? This was a guy who used to be able to make some legitimately great hit songs, and also deep cuts that had legitimate power to them. But it feels like on these last 3 albums, he's been failing to do that on almost every level. There have been some exceptions, of course, especially on the album Kamikaze, which was a decent enough album, I guess, but Revival and this new album, Songs to Be Murdered By, both of them failed disastrously, especially this song, Marsh. Man, is this song a disaster, and man, is it disappointing to hear what Eminem has become. Here, you don't see any of his talent showing through, any of the talent that he's expressed on his previous albums. It's really a disappointment and a shame. For as much as Eminem seems to love to critique modern-day rap and trap, it's sort of ironic that he still likes to give in to those tendencies of those genres himself. And on this song, he seems to be trying to replicate a lot of Travis Scott mannerisms, especially his sort of auto-tuned rapping that he does, which is very instantly recognizable of him in this modern day. Eminem just cannot replicate the mannerisms of Travis in any legitimately good way. This song sounds utterly cheap, with Eminem's auto-tuned voice being incredibly laughable with how cringe it sounds. The lyrics are some of the worst I've heard all year, with Eminem using his last name Marshall to let loose all of these really predictable alien puns that are just so bad and make me internally and externally cringe every time I hear them. I really hope Eminem can improve with whatever he does next, because this just isn't it. I'm hoping his next album will be far better, because if he creates more songs like this in the future, I can't imagine returning to him anytime soon.
14 and there was nothing that could faze me when the worst thing in life was a brain.
I have never been the biggest fan of Theory of a Dead Man, or Theory as they like to be called now for some reason, but even I can acknowledge that their earlier material at least had something you could sink your teeth into, a little bit of a rock grit, a little bit of faux edginess or whatever. It wasn't my thing, obviously. I've never been the biggest fan of Theory, but I could sort of see why fans liked them. But now, I've lost even more respect for them. Yes, believe it or not, the band who made the song Bad Girlfriend is somehow even worse now than they used to be. Now, apparently, they're trying to be progressive in their lyrics, addressing in this song Affluenza the idea of wealth gaps in the world. And as you would expect, a band like Theory, who has made a song talking about how horrible their relationship life is, cannot possibly do a good job at addressing serious issues that are relevant to a lot of people. In fact, they do a great job of cheapening the issues and making it sound like a joke, which makes this song quite an insult and honestly very laughably bad in how obviously uneducated this band is about these topics they're trying so hard to think that they have a good idea or a good thing to say about. The band speaks about economic disparities in a way that's very comfortable to them. They speak about it in the perspectives of other people rather than in their own view, because obviously if they were to talk about it in their own view, they wouldn't be able to say much of anything because they're a pretty rich group of people. But since they can go into the perspectives of other people, they can do it in a way that feels just so ridiculous and so overdone, and they create caricatures here more than anything. The band tries to be satirical in this song, but it isn't biting or interesting enough to work. And even the band goes back on that, because of course they do. And then they try to go back and make the song feel more universal, so I guess they don't insult certain aspects of their fan base by saying, we're all on welfare. No, we're not all on welfare, Theory. That is a ridiculous thing to say, and you know it's a ridiculous thing to say. But of course, it goes line in line with everything else about the song, with how over the top it is, with how ridiculously uninformed it sounds, and how ultimately it's a really stupid track at the end of the day. The only reason this song doesn't rank higher is because it is thankfully very forgettable, but it is still an undeniably bad song in every facet.
The pictures that you like, baby, I'm jealous of the girls with...
Baby Rexha is a vocalist I feel like could have talent, but every time I try to give her the benefit of the doubt, she releases yet another song that has just these horrible lyrics to them and awful production that doesn't do her vocals any services at all. It's obvious that Bebe Rexha needs to hire new writers, because clearly the writers she has don't know how to write good lyrics, because here are some of the lyrics in this song, Baby I'm Jealous. I'm jelly, jelly, jelly on a plate, sunny side up, I got egg on my face. Yeah, those are seriously some of the lyrics in the song. I honestly can't believe it either. It just continues to be awful throughout the whole song. And then there's that droning backing beat, which is typical of so many pop songs like this that are talking about this theme of jealousy. You would think that songs with this subject would try to have a bit more grit and something more interesting going on rather than just this backing beat that you've heard so many times, but no. This song does it too, and somehow the song ended up charting, I guess because people like these cliches for whatever reason, but I've never understood it myself. That beat makes it so much tougher to get through this song in one sitting. Bebe Rexha's lack of investment in the song only serves to make it worse, with some truly awful rapping from Doja Cat. Yeah, that really disappointed me. That was the aspect of the song that made me the angriest the most, because I actually like Doja Cat's rapping in general. I thought she was pretty good on Say So with her rapping, but here, her rapping is awful. It's like she can't even hold a good flow, and it doesn't help that the lyrics are just indicative of what the rest of the song is. Overly cheesy and horrifically written. Ugh. I will be so happy to never hear this song again. My goodness, this was so bad and one of the most incompetent pop songs of the year, but not quite the most incompetent, unfortunately.
How you get that bar? Is it from God? Did you work real hard?
Even though Meghan Trainor's most recent album that came out this year wasn't quite as bad as her last two, well, she still more than proved that she can make songs just as bad as All About That Bass or Me Too. Incredible that she can still do that somehow, but I guess that's indicative of how she is consistent at least. Genetics was already a song that was criminal to me because it had the lyrics, "How did you get that bass? Is it all fake?" which did the service of reminding me of All About That Bass, which is legitimately one of my least favorite songs of the 2010s, so this song was already having a black mark on it for having that terrible lyric. But the song gets worse out of that context. You also have this outdated pop backing beat that sounds like it belongs back in the 2000s, which isn't necessarily a compliment for me by any means. And then you've got Meghan Trainor's voice, which still has this obnoxious, over-enunciated vocal pattern that I feel is just not good for her. I don't understand why she constantly goes back to this type of vocal cadence. But on this song, she gives into those obnoxious tropes that she has on songs like Me Too and No and All About That Bass, where she starts to sound really nasally and really overproduced, and I just hate it so much. And of course, like with so many of her other songs, she's just flexing how much of a great person she is. She basically compares herself to a god in this song, which isn't surprising of her. I don't know why she does this. I don't think Meghan Trainor's earned to be able to flex things like this. If you have to constantly tell us how great you are, it's just not convincing to me. Not at all.
Can you stop me from this spin?
I've come to sadly accept that Five Finger Death Punch isn't going to be improving anytime soon. I don't think they're ever going to become better. I think they're just going to say the same generic metal band. I'm glad that Ivan Moody is on a better path now. I'm glad that he's become sober and he seems to be personally happier than he's ever been. But the band, they're still the same type of band that's trying to be so edgy and so tough and so in your face all the time. They're still the same band who makes songs that they think are so powerful, but they're still the most intellectually and musically hopeless band in their genre, or at least one of the most hopeless. Ugh. This song is no exception, and really leaves me scratching my head as to what to say about it. The song almost seems to be saying that celebrities don't know what they're talking about, and even seems to sort of wish death on them in its lyrics. I might be pushing that too far, because the lyrics are so generic here that it could apply to almost any type of person. And then there's lyrics like, "Special's a term they use to describe someone when they're afraid to admit they're right." Grammatical incompetencies aside, what the heck is that supposed to mean? Like, the lyrics are meaningless. There's nothing being said here. Nothing of interest. It all leads to just a sentiment that seems like it's trying to be clever, but I'm at a loss for words here. Musically, this song is like any Five Finger Death Punch song ever, with the same guitar riff going on in the background. It sounds like the guitar riff to almost any other Five Finger Death Punch song you can name in the past couple of years, and the drumming has the same drumming patterns. It's a shame that these talented musicians are resorted to doing the same thing over and over. And then, of course, Ivan Moody's vocals sound the same as they always have. This band used to have so much potential. I still love American Capitalist as an album, and I think the first two albums are pretty decent. But ever since, they've just continued to go downhill. It's a shame. Such a waste of potential.
I could dance like Michael Jackson. I could get you satisfaction.
The songs that will often make me angry the most are the ones that are lazy, know that they're lazy, and still somehow get successful despite their laziness. Drake has been coasting by on this formula for years now, and Tootsie Slide is his most egregious example of this formula yet. This is by far, in my opinion, Drake's worst song to date. which is really saying something because he's released a lot of bad material in recent memory. Drake was talented at some point. Sometimes it's hard to remember that he was, considering the excess of material he's released that has either been lazy, forgettable, or straight up cringe. And this song honestly fits into all three of those areas. Now, for as much as I hate dance songs like Teach Me How to Dougie or Watch Me Whip, I can at least acknowledge that those songs have some sort of energy and I can sort of see the appeal to them. I can't see any appeal to this song whatsoever. It's so downbeat and so minimalist. How are you supposed to dance to a song like this? It's not even fun to listen to. The song has no redeemable qualities at all to it. The dance moves aren't fun, and Drake sounds pretty much half asleep while he's listing all the dance moves here. Right foot up, left foot slide. I mean, come on. That's just the most basic dance moves. You couldn't even do something with a little more effort to it? Drake slurs his way through this song, and still, even with that, he somehow manages to get a spot in the Hot 100, the #1 spot at that. How does that happen? Why do people continue to give this man a platform when he has nothing interesting to say anymore? Screw this song. I'm done talking about it. However, I'm not done being angry though, because now we're going to be talking about a band that should have never made my worst songs list. I didn't think they'd ever make my worst songs list, but Green Day did it with this awful song, I Was a Teenager. I mean, honestly, what is that title even supposed to mean? Like, he's the most teenage of teenagers? I tried my best to analyze this song in my review of Father of All, but I couldn't even come close to expressing my frustration over this song. I mean, sure, Green Day's trilogy of albums do have their sets of problems, I'm not denying that, but they've never made a song quite as incompetent or lyrically hopeless or musically inept as this one. The song is clearly trying to say something, trying to be so angsty and so, like, edgy, but it just doesn't work because it's coming from a 40-year-old man trying to speak in the perspective of a teenager, and clearly he doesn't remember these times well, and the lyrics are all the more cringe because of it. I was a teenager full of piss and vinegar. You can do so much better than that, Green Day. Those are just some ridiculous lyrics that don't have any sort of merit to them, in my opinion. Musically, nothing about this song comes together, with the guitar work just droning along and the drumming feeling just so background noise, and even then the song is disappointingly emphasizing on these pop tropes that aren't remotely interesting. Billy Joe Armstrong's vocals don't even have any passion behind them. It sounds like he's literally going through the motions, and it's just a disappointment. It's just infuriating all around. Green Day is so much better than this, and they know it. I hope on their next album that they do much better. I hope that this song was a fluke, because if this is the road they're going down on in the future, I'm very worried.
Yeah, I know.
Sometimes going experimental can be a bad thing. The 1975 more than proved that with Yeah, I Know, which is one of the most confusing and mind-numbing songs I've heard all year long. I haven't returned to this song much, and honestly I think it's because I still, unfortunately, remember it very well. I still remember the auto-tuned warbling of Matt Healy's vocals, and this pitchy beat that goes in the background, as well as this distorted robotic voice that says one phrase over and over ad nauseum for a good half of the song. Everything about this song makes me want to be irritated by it, and it succeeds. Nothing about this song feels musical, or feels like it has a melody to it. Everything here feels so hollow and so lifeless, which I guess is fitting because of the robotic vocals constantly going off in the background. I'm not even sure what more I could say about this song, because, I mean, really, the quality speaks for itself more than anything else. I hope that the 1975 realizes songs like this are alienating rather than interesting. There are some experimental songs out there are good, but 1975 clearly doesn't know how to make a song like this work. I can't return to this song at all. It's just terrible, and it's pretty much a catastrophe in every way possible.
So put your best face on, everybody pretend you know.
AJR isn't going away anytime soon, aren't they? Well, guess it's time to accept it, even though I don't want to. I really don't understand why this band is continuing to get more recognition because they are truly awful. One of the worst of their type. And now, they're making songs that are charting on the Billboard. Oh boy, now that that's happening, I feel like I'm not going to be able to avoid this band ever again, which absolutely sucks. And on this song Bang, it's clear that they're still stuck in their insufferable man-child phase that they were on in Neo Theater. And now they're complaining all cutesy-like about how they can't do their taxes. Like, yeah, right, AGR, you don't have to worry about taxes. It's time to get into the real world, but clearly AGR doesn't care about getting into the real world, and they still care about living in this ridiculous fantasy where they think they're somewhere between child and adult, and they don't have to worry about any of the real problems of the world. I hate the way this band tries to be relatable. They do it in a way that is so immature, but also so incredibly calculated, in a very cynical way. They'll go out of their way to say something like, I'm way too young to lie here forever. I'm way too old to try. So whatever. Yeah, those lyrics pretty much embody their career statement. At least they're being honest about it now, I guess. They know that they need to try because they're older, but they don't want to. They don't care to try. So yeah, that should be the statement that you remember when you go to AGR's music. They know that they could try, but they don't want to, and they know they don't have to because they know that their fan base will still eat up their terrible material for whatever reason. Why this band has any fame is beyond me, but it's clear that they have a fan base, and they're gonna go along for the ride. So, if you're a fan of AGR, fine. But let me just tell you, I don't get it. I didn't expect this song to get quite so high, but the more I thought about it, the more it did start to get high, because the more it started to frustrate me. On their album Like a House on Fire, Asking Alexandria said that every song on the album was important to them, and that it had some important meaning. What about Down to Hell is important, or meaningful? The song uses filler na-na-nas in a way that I think is literally meant to be taken seriously, but it is so dumb and so bad that it makes me roll my eyes every time. But what permeates this song more than anything is Danny Worsnop's absolutely insufferable ego. This guy is insufferable. He's pretentious, he's annoying, and he knows it. He actually lists off those qualities in the lyrics of the song, and he talks about them with pride. He just lays these qualities out and he's like, yeah, those are my qualities. I'm not going to try to change. I'm not going to try to become a better person. That's who I am, and I don't care. It really sucks that this is what his ego is like, and that he lets it permeate so obnoxiously throughout the song. It leaves me out with an even worse taste than I already had. The fact that he's not willing to change his ego, or at least acknowledge it, makes the song have an extra toxic layer, which makes the song almost even more laughable in how generic it is. For all the edginess that Danny is trying to have, for all the over-the-top demeanor that Danny is trying to have, he's still drowned out in this generic radio-ready tropes that will make this song easy to play on rock radio, but nobody's going to pay attention to it probably. It's just background noise. The band doesn't care anymore, that's obvious enough, so I don't think I can care about this band anymore. There's nothing remotely interesting about this song besides how bad it is, in every way, shape, and form possible.
These beautiful girls, I let them ruin my world. I let them walk in my...
Blackbear is, by far, the most overrated pop vocalist to me, in my opinion. I don't get the hype behind him. I don't even really see him as super talented. I suppose he works in small doses as a featured vocalist, but that's the key to him. He only works when he's against someone who is far more talented than he is. I can only see the most shallow of people being attracted to Blackbear, but even shallow people, I have to give them some credit. I feel like there's almost no one who could be attracted by lyrics like, why are girls so hot? Why are girls so cold? Oh my gosh, so poetic, so endearingly beautiful. I hope you can hear the dripping sarcasm from my voice, because those lyrics aren't saying anything at all, besides maybe the layer of toxicity that hides under them, where Blackbear puts women at entirely in the fault for relationship problems. But who's the one that keeps on losing the girls? It's you, right, Blackbear? So maybe there's a different common layer here. But I don't think Blackbear cares to analyze that, because it's obvious he can't go beyond generic sentiments that could apply to almost anyone. He's not bold enough to say anything else of interest. This is by far the most generic song of the year, and yet It is also one of the most insufferable. But not the most insufferable, because there is still a song that undeniably tops it. But before we go into my number 1 worst song of the year, I do want to list off my dishonorable mentions. These are the songs that didn't quite make my list, but I still thought were bad enough to get a mention here. So yeah, here's my dishonorable mentions. These songs are horrible too. I don't recommend you listen to them.
That much difference between you and me in a time full of everything. You became everything. That's how I'm the one who's under your spell.
And there's nothing I can do. I'm stuck with.
And now, for my number 1 pick. Here it is.
Yeah, you got that yummy, that yummy, that yummy.
Just when I think I have to give the Billboard Hot 100 credit, just when I think it's getting better, a song like this charts there. The fact that this song charted at all is a crime. Thankfully, it didn't have very long chart success, but Yummy by Justin Bieber is undoubtedly the worst song of the year. You might think that Bieber Married would have something more poignant to say about his wife, who he is in love with. You would think that he might have more lyrics of substance to talk about her, and about how much he cares about her, and about their relationship. But no, all he does on this song is compare her body to food. I hate when pop songs do this. I felt like these songs were out of date. I felt like these songs were gone. I haven't seen many songs do this lately, but this song does, and it's as bad as ever. I hate when songs compare bodies to food. It feels so uncomfortably objectifying to me. Musically, this song is so repetitive as well, having barely any variation to it at all. The chorus is basically saying the same thing over and over again, and when the lyrics do have variation, they're still really bad. I mean, you got lyrics like, you ain't never running low on supplies, 100 racks, help me spend it, babe. Yeah, you got that yummy yum. How this song got a Grammy nomination is absolutely beyond me. That awards show is essentially a joke now for giving a song like that a Grammy and not giving Blinding Lights at least a nod or a nomination. It's ridiculous. This is an embarrassing song, and thankfully a lot of people called it out for being as such, but it still had success, which is still a huge disappointment to me and still makes me feel a little gross. Ugh, screw this song. So yeah, those were my worst songs of 2020. What were your least favorite songs of 2020? Let me know in the comments below. Once again, my name is James, and be on the lookout for more lists coming soon. Next up is a big one that is going to take a little while to make, so it'll probably be a couple weeks before this one comes out, but it's the top 50 songs of the year, the top 50 best songs of 2020. I'm very excited to make this list, and I'm very excited to talk about some of the best songs of the year. So yeah, be on the lookout for that video. But until then, I will see you all next time.